Hello, good evening, and another warm welcome to sun-drenched Wiltshire. I'm Xander Drury, and this is the third edition of the Chalke Valley History Festival podcast, bringing exclusive updates, interviews and reviews to the comfort of your own living room. Somehow we have reached the halfway point of the festival, and already we have covered so much. 3 evenings and 12 events later, we have delved into a plethora of eras, ranging from the Arab Empire of the 7th century to the scandal and smut of the 18th century. And in fact, I earlier spoke to festival organiser James Holland, who reiterated how relieved and proud he was that there really have been no dud events thus far, with the level of talks and audiences staying formidably high. Now, kicking day 3 off tonight was David Murrin, mastermind of the groundbreaking book Breaking the Code of History. After 5 years of extensive research, David has drawn up a grand unifying model, compellingly arguing that human behaviour is not random, but in fact follows a series of specific cycles. In his thought-provoking address, David put forward how he believes all systems develop, wax and wane in a predictable process, which he coins as the 5 stages of empire, allowing us to learn from our mistakes in the past and hopefully halt the West's catastrophic decline before it's all too late. I was lucky enough to talk to David and his son Winston shortly afterwards. Right, well, David, thank you for joining us this evening. Congratulations on a fantastic talk. How do you think it went?
No one threw anything at me. It's always a good sign.
And your first impressions on the festival, obviously.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Absolutely fabulous. Everything you hope to have in history, which is people are fascinated, educated, questioning. They really try to understand the concepts of our history, what it means for them, its fascination, the pride of being British in our history is part of this event, although people don't celebrate it as officially. I think it's an amazing concept.
Because I suppose it must be odd, because your usual audience is very different.
Mostly they've been professional, financial audiences, and it's really great to get out there and speak to the general public about ideas that directly affect them and concepts that I hope, if they take on board, can grow so that actually we change the course of how our affairs are run.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know, what's this grand unifying theory in a nutshell? What can you do in a nutshell?
It's the idea that basically, just as an individual rises and falls, societies at the largest degree, empires, rise and fall in 5 stages, and those stages have very distinct demographics, distinct forms of leadership and creativity, distinct actions of expansion, maturity, understanding, and then decline, like all systems. And it's really interesting because we tend to think that history is a plethora of different events, but when you use this system and you apply it, it just keeps repeating itself. And it's camouflaged so that we just think everyone is slightly different, but they're not different. And the whole goal of the book is to make people conscious of how it works, and if you're conscious of it, maybe then you can escape its cycles and be more creative in some of the more difficult phases.
I mean, you said in your talk how you think that the UK is fascinated with history. And why do you think this is?
Well, first of all, we had the world's biggest empire within generational memory. It was a very different empire in the way it acted as a sea power with small demographics. Therefore, it didn't impose its will, it tended to integrate its values with local people. When it lost its empire, it wasn't perfect, but it did leave behind a governable commonwealth of people who have infrastructure and value systems that have worked for them. And it also, because we were the first sea power without any land power options, we governed and we perceived the world very differently. Because what happens normally with a land power, it forces its will on someone else. It doesn't respect other cultures, becomes very hated in the process, and the whole collapsing system is extremely destructive. So we have a lot to be proud about.
But are we doomed now, would you say, the UK? Or
are we doomed? Look, I think we face the most challenging period in history as a declining Western civilization. We declined a long time ago, but we still have a memory that can affect future outcomes. We have a massive problem with negative real growth, and we have exceptionally poor leadership that fails to see the strategic issues ahead of us. And so actually educating the electorate to ask more of their leadership and what the challenges are in reality is the first step to changing the future.
So that would be the step to...
That's what the book is really about, is giving the individual the ability to perceive information more accurately than just having it fed to them in a confusing mass that they just can't make a decision about, and demanding more from our leadership so that we have a future and our children have a future.
But on the other side of the spectrum, you would say the rise of China is unstoppable.
Look, it is unstoppable that the system will rise and expand and move into the vacuum of Western decline. However, whether or not it is actually it's capable of throwing the dice militarily to create a very poor outcome is up to us, so that there is not a large defence gap between their ability to be offensive and our ability to defend ourselves. And unless we actually reinvigorate our economies with some very fundamental moves, i.e. restructure all of the debt in the West, facilitate lower taxes and remotivate our people to be productive, we cannot afford to defend ourselves, and that's when you give the Chinese a free option. And that's my biggest fear right now.
And you talked in the past about your struggles writing the book. Do you find coming here and just giving talks a much easier process?
Look, I'm thoroughly freaking dyslexic, so but what was interesting was once I started the process, I was able to write and formulate my thoughts as I've never done before. And when I speak, it's almost an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
It's a very different form of communication, and I can't fully explain it, but it's not the same as the communication you have one-on-one, self-to-self.
Absolutely. So, and lastly, where do you see this theory? What, in the ideal world, what would you want this theory to go?
I would love this theory to reach the general population, to resonate and have understanding, to then move to the decision makers, or to be the decision makers first or at the same time, and then to put the decisions we have in the context of the social laws that the book describes.
Yeah.
And then they are very stark, and we can face those with intention collectively, and we can create a beneficial outcome for our planet, not just our country. But this isn't just about our country, it's about our whole planet becoming conscious and aware. It's one entity, and if we don't do it, the other alternative is pretty black.
Well, it was a fascinating and really sobering talk, David, and thank you for your time tonight.